Good afternoon. It is Friday, September the 19th, about 3:45 p.m. This is meteorologist Shay Gibson bringing you a final forecast for the Alice Cup 2025 leaving out of the Charleston Yacht Club. It's sponsored by Ashley Yachts. A special thanks to them. They're going to be leaving out at 8 a.m. and all the way till 10:01 a.m. So it's going to be a staggered release time for those starts. So make sure you know when yours is. We did talk last night in the skippers meeting. It seemed like a fairly competent forecast. And I will say that even forecasting 2, 3, and even 4 days out sometimes can be a real challenge when you have a setup like we have, and weather it can be challenging along our coastline. But I'm not going to backtrack too much. What I am going to talk about is some of the forecast challenges ahead where there could be some impacts to the overall wind field and why. So let me go ahead and just put myself down in the corner here. Looking at the surface map, the Canadian high is on track to settle down across the northern U.S. at some point. So by tomorrow morning, we see it coming all the way down here, right? So one of the things I talked about was this front being hung up in the videos the other day. It was a little lower before with this ridge was there, the expansion of the ridge came all the way down. I still think we're going to get that by Saturday morning. It'll be a little slower to fill in, as I mentioned last night. But we do have one feature, this trough lifting up. So there's a positive tilt in this trough, which means moisture is going to be surging up along an old front, and low pressure may be trying to develop along that. The NAM 12 is reading it. And what that means is that this wind field gets interfered with by this low, where normally the ridge would come all the way down and fill all the way down the coastline, nice and clean, a good clean fetch all the way down. Now what we're doing is we're introducing a trough or an area of low pressure up into the middle of that, where it can just run some interference. And what it ends up looking like in the wind field is that the winds come down and then they wrap around this and then try to come back in at this angle. And so it tries to correct around it. And the other portion of that is this ridge axis that's digging all the way down across this way. And this is the weaker side of the ridge, which means this trough is trying to get up and around and into it. And as this high pressure moves off to the southeast and the east, eventually the trough may kind of bank in towards the Outer Banks coast in time. So this is one of the challenges that I'm having with the forecast right now is, will this develop and how much interference will it run? So the WPC doesn't have a full-blown low. We still get that wind coming down through Saturday. And I'll get into the wind specifics in just a minute. But here's the run for Sunday where we see that ridge axis really digging down across the Appalachians. It's up here New England by this time. And this low pressure is kind of nearing Outer Banks, which means the wind field may get perturbed right through here and then have a little time to come in and settle down the coast around the western periphery of this low. So it may keep that pressure gradient go, but the direction may not be east-northeast. So just kind of showing you that. I want to go ahead and look at COD. You can see here on visible satellite, College of DuPage, we have an upper troughing feature kind of digging down. You can see these mid-level winds kind of coming up, sweeping up like this, but really the troughing is coming up along this front from the south, and this is where the low pressure is expected to try to form along it. So it's pretty far out there. I don't think we're going to have to worry about any rains or showers, anything like that. I mean, if we get a nice east flow, we'll probably get showers and storms inland along that front. But that's for the main part of it. So if we look at the NAM, I'll bring this forward here. So the NAM shows this troughing area. This is right now. As we go forward in time, we see this is by tomorrow morning, we start to see about 2 a.m. and then we go further up. And this is right around the time that we would likely be starting, right at 12Z is the UTC, so that means we got to back it out 4 hours. And this is what I'm talking about, where the ridge, where it would normally come all the way, it would really follow those isobars all the way down and around with a good clean fetch. Now we're starting to get this low pressure running some interference. So I do think it'll still settle in. We'll have that north-northeast kind of flow in the morning. Light, I don't know if it's going to be starting out at 10 to 14 at this point, probably more like 7 to 11. And then as the sun comes up and we start getting some heating, then we get that northeast fetch. And then eventually we get this east-northeast fetch trying to fill in if this low doesn't run interference. So, that's the case. So I'm going to go right on through into Sunday. You can kind of see what happens here. What the NAM 12 is doing with the GFS isn't fully on board with a wrap low. I mean, this could end up not being anything, but remember what I talked about is in the video, this top spin from high pressure over low pressure tends to give it more spin this way, counterclockwise, right? So it kind of feeds in to this entire system. So this high pressure to the north could breed another area of low pressure. It probably won't be like the one we just had at OBX, but could be something in that similar nature where we get a mid-latitude low developing out of that. So just be aware that the forecast challenge for Sunday as well is going to include this low pressure running interference on the wind. So keep that in mind. We'll go ahead and look at the tempest and pick the 2 points I'm going to use today. They're going to be Folly Beach, South End, for a good reference point for closer to shore. And it looks like some of the miles are starting to fill back in. So sometimes they start getting a little bit jumpy, and then you see things settling out. So by tomorrow morning, we're looking at a little bit lighter at 8 a.m., probably in the 6 to 10 knot range to start from the north or northeast. And then as you go through the morning around 10, 11 o'clock, we start to see that northeast fetch coming across the harbor, right? So those of you starting will see these winds slowly veering through the day. And the models are still hanging on to it. The HRRR is really trying to go with more of an east-southeast. So we can't take that east flow off the table either as we get into the afternoon hours. So it may not be an east-northeast, maybe a dead east. And then again, just be ready for oscillations. If that low really does try to form, we could end up with a little bit of a bent wind field where winds try to back a little bit, especially if some clouding gets near the area off the coast. So just be aware of that. The speeds I called for were 16 to 20 knots. The trim is holding on to that. I tend to kind of stay on the higher side with this kind of a setup, but with that troughing out there, it could run a little bit of interference. So I will only adjust a couple of knots and call for 14 to 18 near the coast. Now offshore, I'm pretty sure that we're gonna continue to see a stronger gradient. And let me just pick the Charleston Corinth buoy. This is 18 miles out, so a little further out probably than most people will go once you round the mark and turn and head down the coast. But you can see here a lot of the models are just kind of all over the place with speeds. This is out going to be kind of closer to the trough. So some of the models are holding on to a lower end and some going on to a higher end. So a lot of disagreement there, making for some challenges. But I still think we'll have that mid to low to upper teens somewhere. Maybe some bouncy ups and downs and some inconsistency out there, but you'll still have some spikes in the pulses out there in the winds. So that's still on point. Just be ready for some wind to be going down the coast of Mars. Should be pleasant either day. We don't want too much. We want just enough to really be able to scoot down. So that's a good point. Now, as we get into Sunday, I'll pick the Fripp nearshore buoy as a point. And what we see offshore at the Fripp shore buoy for Sunday is a sooner start. So we're starting in the low teens in the morning early. It's a little bit exuberant. Again, we get that northeast fetch early in the lower ranges in the probably upper singles to low teens. As the race starts, we see that northeast veering. Now, I'm not as sold on this east-northeast flow. I think we're going to get a little bit more interference. We might be more like due northeast out there off the coast. So coming back in, just be ready for that. And I think we'll still get that 16 to 20 knot range on Sunday. As long as if that low hooks in closer to North Carolina, that's going to run some interference on the entire wind field. And you may see speeds coming down overall with more of a northeast. So just be aware of that for a backup plan or contingency plan on Sunday. But the good thing is I don't see a lot of rain in the area. Most of that's going to stay offshore or well off to our northeast. So that's looking pretty good. As far as wave heights, not much change there. Looking at the Gerlin Hansen plot, 8 seconds are going up to 3 feet. Saturday afternoon, we're going up towards 3 feet well offshore, we're talking 18 miles out. Or actually, this one's a little bit closer in about 9 or 10. So 3 to 4 feet. I'd say 3 feet building on Saturday afternoon offshore. We're looking at 2 to 3 closer to shore. As we get into Sunday, it's building even higher. So you're looking at 3 feet near shore and 5 feet well offshore. You're talking beyond 15 nautical miles. So just be aware of that. The farther out you go, farther out you reach, or go up the coast, then you may run into some pretty stiff swell out there. But that's gonna do it for this forecast. I really just wanted to kind of call out that we have this low pressure just trying to run some interference with that entire wind field. And a lot of times this ends up being closer to the coast, which makes for a kind of messy situation for us. For luckily, it's staying offshore. We'll still have some winds. If it does die down and gets really light, just be patient. It may fill back in at some point. But overall, I'm still holding on to those low to upper teens overall, and Sunday could be a little higher. I wouldn't expect it to hold from now. I think the forecast may come down just a little bit for Sunday based on this. But just be aware. But the good thing is not a lot of rain or storms in the forecast associated with this close to us. With that said, I'll go ahead and sign off for this one. I wish everybody the best of luck out there on Saturday and Sunday. Have a good time, Godspeed, and whatever you're doing, just have fun. Take care, everybody.